Hey, what's up, guys? Day number 4 is underway, and the first 3 have gone absolutely horribly. You're never due in poker. That's a bad mentality to have. But my goodness, if we were ever due in poker to hit the nuts or just to win, just to have a winning session, we're due. It's like it feels like the poker table is a furnace and I'm just shoveling $100 bills into the fire. Today is just damage control. I'm going to play 1-3. I'm not going to move up in stakes.
Huge thanks and a shout out to Patreon supporter Justin. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'm playing for you today. If I win, you win. Well, this looks like a fantastic way to start the session. We pick up black aces and raise to $15. An opponent raises us to $40 and I try not to lick my chops. It folds back around to me and I'm going to raise small to $110, trying to keep him around. I thought that things were going well, but it gets even better. The opponent raises to $275. Let's rip it. This gives away the strength of our hand completely, but our opponent is basically committed now and the jam for $200 more is unlikely to get a fold. If they fold, we make a profit of $275 without any further action. He does call. Show me those kings. We flip it up and we get the event that happens only 0.3% of the time. Aces versus aces. The flop gets interesting. 2 clubs means that we are free rolling and could go runner to a flush for the win. It would be gross and fantastic for us. The turn, however, brings in a diamond and we chop it up. For the second hand, we have ace-7 of spades in the hijack with $5.50 behind and open to $10. We get 2 callers. The flop looks good as we get top pair on a dry board. Checks to me and I bet 10 to try to get light calls. The big blind raises to $35. Based on the board and the action, this can be a steal attempt just as easily as it could be a set or 2 pair. I'm not giving up on top pair that easily, but I will proceed with caution if they lead big on the turn. The turn is a 7. Yeah, boy! Opponent now checks to us, which makes it seem like a steal attempt that is giving up. I'm going to target decent aces and worst 2 pairs that could call. I think that another tactic here could be to bet really small and hope that a steal attempt takes another shot with a big raise. But I think that we are better off trying to get value from an ace that is slowed down. I bet $75 and opponent now bets $275. If I'm facing a set, then I'll have to pay it off. I jam, hoping to get a call from something like ace-10 or 2 pair like ace-4. Our opponent thinks for a long time and then folds, claiming that he had ace-deuce. I find that hard to believe and think that it'd be more likely that he'd have a bluff or something like an ace-x that isn't actually that strong. But we made some decent money on this hand either way. Well, we move from one suited ace to another. Ace-5 suited shows up a little bit later, and we now have $8.50 in the stack. We raise to $15 in middle position. The flop is a paired board of Jack, Jack, Queen, and I bet $10. Basically, I'm trying to fold out just complete air. Most hands are going to miss this board. Let's see what happens. The villain decides to make the call for $10. We head to a turn of an ace of hearts. Now I check to the button with some showdown value, and he bets $20. I'm going to call. He's going to have some jacks, some queens, and maybe occasionally an ace as well, but I feel comfortable calling. He's going to have some bluffs also. The river is a 7, and we're going to check again. He bets $50, but doesn't look extremely comfortable. I make the call, and he shows the 8-5 of hearts for the missed flush. Very surprising that he called the flop bet as thin as this, but this is a fairly substantial mistake, and this is why betting thin can really pay off well. We're glad that we bet that small, and we're glad he made the call. Well, after a few wins, we're finally starting to get our mojo back. And on top of that, we pick up pocket queens. I raise to 15, and there are a couple of callers, and then a raise to 60. I'm going to bump this one up again, and I make it $200. Everyone decides to fold, and we make a nice profit without even having to see a flop. Now, pocket 7s show up for us in middle position. Early position raises to $10, and we're calling to see if we can find another 7. We end up going 5 ways to a flop of 8 of spades, 5 of spades, 7 of hearts. Shabang! Now we need to try to get paid. Original raiser bets $25. I end up making the call. I think I should still be making the raise because let's say like a 9 comes down on the turn. That's going to kill action for us for sure. And it can even put us in second place. If a spade shows up, the same thing happens. So I don't think there's any reason that I should be just calling. I think I should be raising 100% of the time here, basically. The turn is the queen of spades. It checks to me and I bet $30, but he decides to fold. I'm not sure that I would have got value by raising on the flop, but I definitely should have. Not sure what he's betting with into multiple players that he's willing to fold for this price, but he does make the correct laydown. We joined this hand a little bit late, but we're holding ace-king offsuit in the big blind to make it $70 over a raise to 20 from the button. The button re-raises to 145. This is basically a min raise, and I'm going to call and see if we can hit a flop because of the price, but I will say that most opponents are not going to 4-bet at these stakes, so I think you could actually exploitatively fold here. I think best case scenario, you have the same hand or you're flipping. Worst case scenario, you're absolutely dominated and crushed, and because people don't 4-bet very often, we're probably more likely to be crushed than anything else. And so I know it's a min raise, and I know we already have 70 in there. We're getting insane odds. I almost think it's a fold at these stakes. I think at higher stakes, for sure, I'm calling. The price is so good, I end up making the call. The flop comes down 10-7-7. It's an interesting spot where we could consider a donk lead, but I think that I would only be willing to make that play at a higher stakes game where players have more variety in their range. It would allow us to steal from other ace-x combos, and we could still hit if we get called by jacks or queens. I end up checking and folding when the opponent jams. Well, we've given some money back to the table over the last couple of hands, and we're looking to regroup mentally. Let's not allow this thing to unravel again. We get LL Cool J's in early position and raise to $15. Middle position re-raises to $40, and I'm going to make the call. The flop is an absolute beauty. Jack of hearts, 8 of hearts, 3 of clubs. I check and it checks through. The turn is an ace of clubs. Even better. This is the perfect opportunity to get paid. Let's hope that our villain has hit this one. We bet 45, hoping that the villain will call. We get even better news when the opponent announces a raise to 90. I'm going to re-raise really small and go to 180. Keep it affordable so that they'll call, and hope that they have an ace that just can't get away. The river is the king of spades, and I lead for 220. Villain now jams. We call, and we good. With that, we've hit a new high for the session. What's this? Pocket queens again? I raised to $15, there are a couple of callers, and then a raise to $65. This looks pretty familiar. I'm going to make it $200 again. This time, however, the villain re-pops it with an all-in, and I am willing to call it off at higher stakes, but I am not willing to do so here. I just know that opponents at this stake basically have aces or kings only and nothing else. At low stakes, it's a snap fold, unfortunately. I let it go, and he shows that he did indeed have a pair of vowels. Pocket aces for the win for our opponent. We had black aces to start the session, and we chopped. Now let's see how red aces work. I raised to $25 over a limper in a straddled pot with $850 on the button. The limper makes the call with a $250 stack. The flop is Jack 6-4 Rainbow. That looks fantastic. I'm going to bet $20 after it gets checked to me, and the villain makes the call. The turn is the 10 of clubs, adding a backdoor flush draw to the board. The villain now checks again, and I bet $55. She takes a while to think about it, and then announces an all-in. We may have stepped on a landmine here. The spot is close, and people at 1-3 can definitely do some surprising things after limping pre-flop. That said, this is one of those times where the they always have it rule likely applies. I reluctantly throw in the calling chips, expecting bad news, and she rolls over pocket sixes, showing the flop set, and the bad news is confirmed. How about queens for the third time in the night? We're 1-1 so far. Let's turn that into a winning record. After a couple of bad hands, our stack has been hit pretty hard. We have $450 under the gun plus 1 and raised to $17 over a limp. 2 callers and we're off to see a flop 3 ways. How about top set on Queen Jack 10? We bet $35 and get a caller. The turn is the 9 of diamonds. That sucks. We're going to have to check, but it does check through. The river is an even uglier 8. The action goes check, check, and we chop. Well, with queens for the third time in the night, we end up with a record of 1-1-1 with queens. Didn't really expect that, but oh well. This time we have a suited ace on the button, and we call an under-the-gun raise to 15. Big blind also calls, and we're headed to a pile of hearts. Jack 10-3. Yes. Under the gun bets 20. This is fantastic. I'm going to make the call here and try not to scare anybody away. If they're going to continue betting, I'm in position. I'm kind of controlling the size of the pot. I'm almost hoping for a fourth heart to show, and for a chance that like a king of hearts is going to get a bunch of money in the middle. The turn is the 4 of clubs, and our main villain bets 25 again. It goes call, call. I'm going to, again, just allow them to put the money in. I think that it would be reasonable to raise in this spot, but our opponent has been making some bluffs throughout the night, and I'm going to try to keep those hands in his range since we aren't really worried about much. The river is a 5 of diamonds, and he bets $50. Based on the sizing and the action, I think we might have a shot at getting some value here. With that in mind, I raise to 220, and it folds around. I'm going to post this one on the Discord, and I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. What would you do, and how would you handle it? Would you make a raise at a different point in the hand? And if so, what amount, and what are you going to target? We play a few more hands from here, going a little bit up and a little bit down. Ultimately, this table ends up being the most enjoyable group of people that I played with all weekend. And if you were at that table, thanks. It was a ton of fun hanging out with you. We wrap the session slightly after this to book a small win of $200. That means, Justin, this $20 bill is yours, sir. Thanks again for the support and congrats on the win. Expect it in the mail soon. If you would like some money sent to you in the mail in the form of an Amazon gift card, then the details are in the description below to join Patreon and sweat the action with me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like it and sub it. Have a great week. Go crush a table, and I will talk to you next time.